media left as soon as we came to something like this.
They know it's a lot of rubbish.
Well, speaking of rubbish, I'm just curious to see the difference between what LASS is doing and the Winder report talked about in terms of the prospective savings from amalgamation. And I don't have my copy in front of it. I couldn't find it. I obviously didn't bring it. But they included waste management, planning and roading as the three big ones, and the other one there was five of them. The other one was overhead, such as CEOs and group managers and what have you, and getting rid of a whole group of councillors. I mean, there was about 3 million sitting there. But I'm curious to know, at what point will LASS actually get into those big ones? Because they're the ones that, according to Winder, unless he was wrong, says where the real money is.
Well, I think you're starting to see there's a little bit of dancing on the sidelines. A little, I have to say, would be my observation. But there's certainly, we seem to be getting closer and closer to really starting to look at the investigations into, as I said, the three areas around the three waters, and whether or not that ends up being broken down into wastewater, stormwater and water supply is another issue. But essentially the savings, just because of the sheer physical nature of the region, would have to be around the management and contracting of those. So that's the type of thing that certainly the shared services could be starting to look at.
Mr. Chairman, if I supplementary, that question was asked to Winder, and Winder said it was negligible. In other words, what I'm saying is the link between some piece of work that cost, $100,000? Whatever Winder did.
Yeah.
And this outfit that's meant to be talking shared services is almost a disconnect between what he thinks out of Auckland was where the real money lies, and LAS is doing either the tiddly bits down there or talking about three waters that he said is actually negligible. And I agree with him, they're not connected, and you've made the point, and I agree with you. And there's no way they're going to bury each other's managers. Whereas waste management contracts are dead sitter. And roading, remember he was quizzed about that by a number around here. He said roading's got potential but a lot of issues. So I'm just thinking, well, why doesn't... I mean, at what point does the councillor say, CEOs, whatever the group is, for God's sake, do something that's got some chances?
Question, Councillor Dick.
I have a suspicion that those sort of priorities are overridden by the imminence of amalgamation, or the amalgamation debate. But my question is there any cognizance or consideration given in this company to the issues of buying locally or regionally, as opposed to trying to screw the last cent in the dollar of savings out by centralisation, which is happening in all sorts of areas and is costing the provinces?
We haven't really addressed that because most, if not all, of the member councils are also members of the whole of government procurement process. So that's, if you like, that would initially have been the low-hanging fruit that the likes of the Bay of Plenty local authority shared service would have gone and made savings on. That's already been done. We're already, looking at joint procurement of or undertake, things around insurance, for example, and some of those other back office procurement work as well. So, yeah, it's probably the answer is there's not much more that can be gained from that.
Question? Following on from Councillor Dick's approach, well, the reality is that this procurement process often leads to purchasing out of town somewhere.
That was my point. Sorry, you didn't quite answer.
So I'd be interested to know whether, as a part of the discussion and procurement, which often means purchasing out of town, is there an aspect that says, well, actually there is strategic merit in us purchasing locally? And I'll give you the example where we don't, is in our printing businesses where our printer locally sponsors to the tune of several tens of thousands of dollars, local events, and yet they bypass that printer with their printing needs. That's just one example.
Yeah, my apologies. I didn't actually answer that question. You're right. And the answer to that to date has been no. There has been no discussion around or consideration given to that in any of the investigations that have been done. It just hasn't been brought to the table, I have to say.
Could you bring it to the table?
Further questions? Happy to move, happy to second. Anyone wish to speak? Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Chairman's report. There should be a copy there, is that correct?
Yep, everybody's got one.
I'll move this report, Mr. Chairman.
Happy to move.
Yes.
Seconder for that?
Mr. Chair, can we ask any
Yes,
questions?
of course you can. Before we take the seconder, good idea.
Yeah, thank you. You're meeting with Simon Bridges on the 30th of August. Can you tell us about that, please?
He didn't front up. I got his one of the officials arrived, and the discussion was around the block offer that they're consulting on at the moment, and he just wanted to make sure that councils were aware that the block offer was coming. They weren't quite as explicit in describing it at the time, but there was quite a few of our staff were there as well, and it was a pretty basic, pretty low level conversation, that one. He was also trying to meet with others, other groups, Federated Farmers, I think Transparency Hawke's Bay, was he talking to them?
I'm not sure.
He was. They were trying to get around the region before they came out with the block offer. So that's pretty much sums up that.
Chair, the edit of Hawke's Bay today, was that a specific issue or anything?
Which one was that? Oh, just talking about the general state of play. It was a. I've sort of made a point of not trying to be in his office all the time, unlike some politicians around the place. He bought me coffee.
A cup of tea, Mr. Chairman. Just also on the tea. Did the Regional Council have any entries in that shortest disaster movie competition?
No, they didn't, but I could tell you something that happened there which I'm still a little shocked about. And there was a Napier City Council CEO sitting in one of the judges' seats. First time that's happened for probably 20 years, I'd say. So, they do actually have one. I cited him on the day, sat next to him. No, it was the movies were done by schools throughout the region, and very innovative. No, that was out of bounds. Anything else that I could say that happened at that time? The opening of the MTG, and I'll talk about that in general business, but Councillor Scott attended at very short notice because I had to do that television thing on Saturday, so that's why the deputy was not asked to attend. Councillor Scott I knew she was there, and I had to go to Hastings for the TV thingy, so that's how that happened. MTG, Hungry Horse, it stands for, MTGG. So it's been moved. Sorry, any other questions? No, Saturday morning. They had 3 openings for the museum. In fact, they had 4, I think.
4.
I went to 2. I went to the cocktail party. And the Friends of the... It was for the Friends of the Museum. There's a group called the Friends of the Museum. Chris Laidlaw came up from Wellington for it. So
I would have thought we were friends of the museum. Gave them $2.5 million.
Well, we got one invite.
Yeah, well, I actually find that rather offensive. Yeah, not only did we give them $2.5 million, but that levered another $7 million out of the central government, and I expected every council to get an invite to that. I find it rather offensive.
I share that, Mr. Chairman. I actually phoned and said, where was my invitation? I was quite expecting to be a part of it. And I saw that as a slight on this council because we were major contributors.
Leanne's actually just reminded me that Eastern Central Community Trust didn't even get invited. So.
Well, be that as it may, I still would have thought that this council, maybe the interim CEO might be able to mention that at an appropriate time.
I was invited as the councillor. I might have been away in my own right, but I actually put the invite to councillor.
Very famous. Any other questions? You happy to move? Seconded. You wish to speak?
Very good excuse not to give any more money to Nate. We give it back to the ratepayers whose money it is. But yeah, congratulations on another very good thing, Mr. Chairman, and a good 3 years' work. And well done.
Thank you. Right. I'll put the motion then. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. General business. MTG, there you go. I'll start there. Following the opening on the Saturday, and I got back just at the end of it, we had a luncheon with the Chinese delegation, and Mayor Barbara asked me to tag along with that. The aim is to get the Hung dynasty, the warriors, here next year, and there's work going on at the moment. The purpose of the luncheon was to try and get the cost down. They do charge to let it out of the country, so that's right. Yeah, so they but I just wanted to show everyone this was a watch, yeah. was a white jade emblem tiki. I was telling Mr. Moorhead this morning for the council, which will be displayed upstairs from now on. So there you go. And the other point to make was. I couldn't believe the level of interest in the building on Saturday. The queues were 2 blocks. It was incredible. So whether we got invited or not, I think we can take a little bit of satisfaction out of the fact that the archives are now housed in a fairly swept up, very modern and accessible building. And I do congratulate Napier for continuing, having the perseverance to get it made. And I think we played quite a large part in that process, whether we got invited to the opening or not. But I think we could all be reasonably satisfied that it's a fantastic venue, and it will. If I put my Hawke's Bay tourism hat on, I think it's going to be part of a rebirth and a resurgence in visitor numbers to Hawke's Bay in the near to medium future. So. Have a friend. Okay. Ms. Lambert, government block offer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have been notified as at the beginning of this week of the government's block offer for petroleum, for oil and gas exploration for 2014. So the process they have is that they seek submissions on the areas under that they're proposing for block offer, and that closes on the 14th of November. When they came earlier on last month, as was identified in the chairman's report, I did ask that they might consider extending the submission period, considering we have local body elections, and they said yes, they'd think about it, but it's still the 14th of November. So we will be bringing a submission straight to a council meeting, so that will have to come back to you on the 6th of November. The issue that we've identified, even though the maps are terribly difficult to read, is that part of the block offer extends over the Ruataniwha Plains. So we will be submitting against those areas being included in any final block offer to be considered by the government, and that, as I said, that will come back to this council for hopefully your approval for a submission on the 6th of November, with submissions closing on the 14th. So there's no committee meeting opportunity.
You just to say that last night the Tamatea meeting, 3 delegates for Tamatea for the new trianthem, whatever it's called, will be Brian Gregory, who was here for the last year, Roger Marker, and myself. So it was quite a coup in getting Roger Marker along as part of that committee. Thank you.
Mohi's the coup there, I think, in those names. Reports, Scott?